Okay, I'm gonna call the June 7th meeting of the New Hartford Water Pollution Control Authority to order. It's approximately 7:03. All the members of the authority are present except for Mr. Rosengren. He didn't tell me he wasn't coming, so I assume he may be coming. So we'll look forward to seeing him. The first item on the agenda, second item on the agenda, is the approval of the minutes. We have the minutes from May 3rd, 2012. We don't have the minutes from May 31st, 2012 because there was a glitch with the recording system, but Steve Handwright will be able to provide Stacy Sepsic with the tape for May 31st, so we will eventually get the workshop meeting. Of course, there was no formal action taken at that meeting. The May 3rd meeting minutes, everybody might want to take a few minutes to look at them. There was just a slight revision late in the day from Stacy with respect to the last item. It was just a spelling of the name in 12E. Other than that, let's take a few minutes. Anybody need any more time to digest? Is there a motion to accept the minutes of May 3rd?
Motion that we accept the minutes. Second made.
Motion made by Joe and Ken. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Okay, go ahead, Bill.
Let me see, underlines under item 7. The line, starting with Mr. Michaud explained that he had spoken with Alan Gattell of United Water, had been advised that those repairs could be deferred for another year or so. That's actually, previous sentence talked about repairs to the water tanks. When I talked to Alan, he talked about a different set of repairs, and we didn't discuss the water tanks. I should say, Mr. Michaud explained that he spoke with Alan Gattell of United Water, and Mr. Gattell had provided him with a set of potential capital improvements to the Bridge Street Blackbridge well, and
the filter system, the iron filter removal.
And the electrical panels.
Yeah, and the electrical panels at Blackbridge. And yeah, no, I'm glad you brought it up. It was somewhat out of context, but I think in general this stuff you can get away with it for a year or so, considering the light of what you have. So the nature of that was correct. But we got to work, we'll work together to make sure that we keep the things, we get them on the list in future years, we keep them moving.
Okay, so that sentence should say,
Spoken with Alan Gattell of United Water. Mr. Gattell had provided him with a set of potential capital improvements to the Blackbridge well, and that
or you could just to the Blackbridge well.
the Blackbridge well had been advised that those repairs could be deferred for another year or so. Therefore, the budget projections did not include these repairs.
Okay, that sounds right. Yeah.
Any objection to the maker and the seconder of the motion? Hearing none. Any other comments on the minutes?
I wasn't here, and I probably can't comment anyways, but they're good minutes. They are.
Stacy will appreciate that. Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries and the minutes are adopted as amended. Okay, we have an opportunity for public comments on agenda items. We have some members here of the public. Anybody want to talk to any of the agenda items? Yes. And I will say that there's Mr. Carl Nilsson here who spoke to me earlier in the meeting. He's going to be here with Mr. Briggs, who is the owner of Black Hammer LLC, to, I assume, talked about the nature of their account. But Mr. Briggs is not going to be here for another few minutes, so I'm going to pass Mr. Nilsson, and when he comes, we can either take him up when we get to accounts 10, or we can entertain a motion for what I want. I know he's going to want to say something tonight.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, number 9 was actually put on at Briggs' request.
Customer request, okay, I'll do it under 9, as we have some other business on there too. Mary Beth?
No, I'm just listening.
Water Planet report.
It was a easy-going, typical month. Maintain permit compliance. One's for Christine. We had one alarm at the 219 pump station for the power, continuing power issues out there. C&P was called, they came out, turned the voltage down. Haven't had an issue since, that was May 1st. On the 16th, we had to call in the septic hauler to remove grease. We just put a little note that it's gonna probably become pretty routine until something, if anything, changes in town. There's a lot of grease entering the system, and that's where it's ending up. The station just won't operate with that much grease. And then finally, we had a problem with one of the jet pumps. It's one of the new ones that you guys just received. We had your electricians that built the plant, they came out and they tried a few different things. Then we had the pump company come out and they ended up replacing it with the spare pump. Something's grounding out in the electric motor of the pump, which is causing the 50-amp breaker to pop. But it's very intermittent, you couldn't track it. It would run for 12 hours and then it would fail, and then it would run for 15 minutes and it would fail. So now we've been talking with KSB to try and get your $10,000 pump sent back. And for them to cover it under some type of warranty, considering it's only been installed for 2 months. Yep, we'll have more to be revealed on that. And then we received the composite sampler back. It's been installed. And then the last page, you'll just see our expense report that we've been giving you guys. The big one's for $274.86. We a couple of the copper pipes that feed the SBR, the top of the SBR froze and broke this year. So when we turned it on a few weeks ago, obviously water went everywhere, so we bought the repair fittings to do that, and I repaired it. So we didn't call in a contract, we just did it ourselves. And that's it.
Fast question.
Questions of Mr. Hoffman?
The grease and solids in 219, do you have any idea where that's coming from? Any theories?
It's close.
Can you-
It's close to where we are now.
Is there any way to try to figure out where it's coming from?
You can do some-
Backtrack up the line, look at some facilities that might.
The manhole, yeah, I don't think we have any, ordinances that allow us to do any inspections, grease traps.
Okay.
That's what needs to happen before we can enter establishments.
Town Board of Health?
And then we'd actually have to enter the establishments and inspect.
What feeds to the 219 station? Is it everything
Everything,
from the river or also up in this area?
everything in this whole area.
Okay.
Across the street from Dunkin' Donuts in that backside,
Mhm.
and then everything on this side. There's only a couple service connections after 219 that go to the plant.
And right now, we don't have a grease program.
We have a list of the 10 or 11,
Mm-hmm.
but we haven't inspected as to whether they have that device that DEP requires them to have.
That's like grease trap or a
They have
dipper
grease, they're
type-
supposed to have grease traps, but there's a
dipper,
different device, yeah,
little
there's
dipper,
a.
which is,
the name of it.
You don't need as much footprint,
Yeah.
doesn't take as much
I
space.
will, there's a person in DEP, Ileana, who, I'll give her the 10 or 11 names of the people that, those property addresses that are supposed to have this. And, I will try to get everybody a letter on that list. Got the list from the Farmington Valley Health District, which is the district that would.
they're supposed to cover food services, but they don't cover the grease trap part of it.
Well, they would come in and do it, we'd have to incur an expense to have Farmington Valley do it, so, I think we may just, I will do some investigating about the 11 folk with DEP and Ileana and see
Mhm.
what report back in July. When is the,
Ted had mentioned a lot of baby wipes.
that was primarily down on, the Prospect Street
No, it
pump
was in
station?
this one too.
Oh, it was on
Yeah.
this one
Yeah,
too?
it's this one too. A lot of personal care products. I know you guys sent out a letter, was what, 6 months ago?
Less
What
than
happened
that,
with the
3
last
months
order?
ago.
3 months ago?
Yeah.
Mm.
So, maybe a follow-up letter along with the follow-up phone call to Ileana. And try and curb as much as we can. Public education, if it says it's flushable on a package, people will flush it. And if it doesn't say it's flushable, they'll stand on it until it goes down. That's just the nature of the business, but there's no shredder, there's nothing at that station to help out. So when it gets built up, the only way to get it out is to pump it.
Do you know the last time that we pumped 219 because of grease and solids?
2 months ago.
Okay, I will try to follow up and have a report for you folks at the next meeting.
I got one more question for you. Did we ever fix our flow proportional sampling problem?
Yep. Samplers
Okay.
can be installed.
Because I remember Craig came in and said we were in violation, and
Yep.
I was just curious.
They came out, they had the wires run through the conduits, they needed to install some junction boxes to actually pull it through
Mhm.
and make the connections, that all happened,
That was Aaron Associates?
yes,
Okay.
out of
Did-
Waterbury.
Close loop with DEP? Let them know, or don't really have to?
I believe Judy did before she left, but I'll follow up and let you know.
Oh.
And if not, I'll make sure we let them know. Craig has not been out though again, Craig Matowski.
Yeah.
You seen him? I haven't seen him in 3 years.
He was out.
Okay. Any other questions from Jason Hoffman and the water plant report?
Is there anything you'd like me to stay for further in the agenda?
I think what involves the water plant is number 11, the treatment plant closeout update. I need to inform the WPCA.
Okay.
Otherwise, I think we're good for the process.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Jason.
Want to put my green t-shirt on.
All right, thank you. We're gonna go on to the water plant report.
I'll be there.
United Water. United Water report. Probably have a written copy of it.
Yeah, I try to get it out when your meeting falls on Thursday late. It's a little bit easier to get something before the meeting, get the numbers off the presses, but I try to, get it out, email beforehand, so you guys have a chance to look at it. And when we get here, they can answer questions. I mean, basically, it's, it's part being lucky and part being good. It's, everything's really solid in the water. I hate to, the superstitious in me doesn't want to say it, but, if I look at the numbers historically, Connecticut Water, when I was doing the consumer confidence report, and they basically reported their average draw of 120,000 gallons, and I'd say like over the last year and a half, it's probably been below 105. So, that maybe reflect a trend of less usage. It may just be reporting, but I thought it was interesting. And they're consistent. From Pine Meadow and Black Ridge. We don't have a lot of special monitoring to do this year as far as quality and treatment. We have our routine 2 a month that we take. They were done in May and submitted with the report in June. A lot of the reason we don't have a lot of special sampling is your record of treatment was really good. You were able to qualify for reduced monitoring. A lot of the, the accounts receivable and meter issues, we could probably go over that later. We had a couple of line markouts on May 17th. We met with Ed Smith, I think 43 Prospect Street, to show his options for installing an additional meter service. I'm going second hand here because Mark met with him, but I think the water main's on the other side of the street, so if he wanted to run a new line, you have to run across the street. So what I think he's looking at doing is just breaking the one line and separating the two and 2 meters. He hasn't really proposed, but that really looked like his best option, and he seemed satisfied with it. We also may have been late in May or probably early June, so it didn't get the report. We had customer that when I met with Bob and Dave, customer that they gave us a go-ahead to put in a meter for irrigation. And at some points I'd like to get into the meetings, the kind of details. We agreed to make it work. This is the first. It could be, might be likely to be the first of many. So look at it in that context. But what we basically agreed on is that he would be we would provide the meter. He would be responsible for the fittings and the installation. Any cost there, he would be responsible for getting a remote installed. And then he would pay, there's a meter charge, like for sewer, I think it's $35 a quarter or something. So he would get the meter charge each quarter, but then that number would be backed out of his sewer bill. So there's some revenue coming into sewer, supplying the meter. There's certainly a justification for not filling it because it's going to an irrigation system, but that's kind of precedent. So when we get into amending regs, that's probably something we want to make sure we tie together also. But it's been, we've been working hard. The customers are really appreciative. They're frustrated. Everybody's frustrated, but by the time we get there, they're all pretty happy. So unless anybody has any specific questions, we can move on to the agenda we got.
Is Ed Smith at the Prospect Street location deciding whether to go ahead or not? Is that where it's left?
Yes, yeah, we let him know, yep.
And the separate meter on High Street, is that a go? You're that's going to happen?
That's a go, yeah, we ordered the, it was gonna, he was scheduled it, they scheduled to meet us until after they were on vacation, but they moved it up. And it's a go ahead, the parts are there, he understands, they kinda bite over the $35 a quarter, but there has to be some kind of a return to revenue from the sewer. Just thought it, was a case where we just threw it out as what we thought was the best option for everybody. Brings some revenue in for sewer, like I said, you can justify what gets backed out, but other people will probably, you know how it works, once news gets out.
Okay. I just note that in the body of his report, Alan recounts a meeting that he held with myself and Dave Rosengren about procedures for leaning properties and shut-off notices. And Dave Rosengren would talk further about it, but I'm gonna wait and see if Dave shows up. Because we're gonna have some data on that anyway. Okay, is that one?
Yeah, for now, I'll stay as needed.
Now, before we move on to the budget report, Bill has prepared a brief budget report. We have, as I said, Mr. Nilsson is here, and I believe that's Mr. Briggs?
Yes.
So, they're here, they had informed the town that they were gonna come last month, but they couldn't make it. So they're on the agenda for this month. So we put on an item for customer requests, which we have one request pending from property at 598 Main Street, but since Mr. Briggs is here, Mr. Nilsson is here, is there any inclination to attend to number 9 now, out of order?
Yeah, I
I
think
think
so.
we'll have to make the motion to do that.
Okay. Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, the motion carries. We will now take up number 9. So, Mr. Briggs, or Mr. Nilsson, or both of you, come up to the table if it's better to see. It doesn't really matter.
I think that has the camera.
Thank you for moving us up in the order, appreciate it. I'm the managing partner for 283 Main Street. All of you in the room probably know it as the old Waring Building. And the reason we're here is that, and probably should have come about 6 years ago on this, when we bought the building, but we're really, the water and sewer, in particular the water charges, are very onerous for us in the building. It's, in particular, we're charged approximately $7,700 a year between sprinklers and a couple of hydrants. And I think that was probably a fine way of charging it when it was the Waring Building and it was a big production factory. But as it is right now, it's certainly very onerous, represents a large share of the operating expenses of the property. There's an additional about $3,800, $4,000 that we spend on the actual water usage every year. So it totals about $11,500 in between the sprinkler and the fire hydrant and the water usage itself charges. I don't think that anybody in the room needs to be reminded of the fact that, at least by some of our definitions in the real estate field, we're still in recession. It's very hard for us to pick up new tenants. Economic development in New Hartford is really at a standstill. I also own a property that is up in the industrial park, which is about 60 acres in the industrial park, and we actually just extinguished an industrial subdivision we had up there because there's absolutely no demand. So it's very difficult to shoulder the burden of these charges when we don't, we don't even have the revenue coming in the door to be able to do that, and then part of that falls on economic development in the town. There's not much that incentivizes people to come from an economic development. EDC is, pardon me, but really non-existent in this town. And partly is the economy, but we operate a number of buildings throughout the state, and nowhere are we charged anything. We're never charged on a sprinkler charge like that. For the amount of, usually it's a volume charge. You're charged on how much usage do you have. Well, we have very little usage. We have the Collinsville Antique Company. We have a salon in the building, and we operate a self-storage facility. None of them are major water users. So we'd appreciate you taking a look at that. We'd like to see some other way of charging for it, or to get off of the sprinkler charges and the fire hydrant charges, just as something that's fairer based on our actual consumption. We actually appear on your agenda for other reasons because we have a delinquent accountant. I just was informed of that by Carl when I walked in the door, and just want to make a note. My accounting office had actually made some arrangements. I don't know what the specifics are, and I didn't know we were on your list tonight, but I made arrangements with whomever is in collections for WPCA. I don't know the nature of those arrangements, but I know they had been made. If I knew we were on the agenda tonight, I would have brought the nature of that arrangement, but I know that there was some sort of extended payment terms to be able to get caught up on our past balance. But quite frankly, it's a pretty good illustration of the problem we're having. Very hard to meet our bills based upon how healthy the charges are.
Carl, anything at this point?
No, it's just again that makes the economic development portion of it very difficult. And also, it just seems a little out of whack that he's paying charges for something that he isn't using. And I don't know if the commission was even, I'm sure when the commission put the rates in and that sort of thing, they really had no idea that that was going on.
Yeah, let's go around and, because we have been, in a general sense, looking at all of our accounts, Mr. Briggs, and certainly your account has drawn attention because of the size of it. So I'm glad you're here. I agree with you. We probably should have heard from you earlier.
$60,000 in fees ago, it would have been, but I should have been here to say, hey, this is an issue.
And I can tell you that the arrangements, we know what they are. They don't really meet our arrangement workout. There wasn't, but nevertheless, there was an arrangement reached. But we can come back to that and try to work on that.
We certainly, I certainly come back another time as well to hammer out those things.
Down the road, if somebody on the commission wants to follow up, who's your contact? Can we talk to you?
Generally no.
Yeah,
that's why I have an accounting office.
Okay.
But Lori Bouchard is the accountant in our accounting office. We have a true accounting office, so Lori Bouchard. If she raises the hand, it does come to me. And certainly, the fact that we're on this list here and it wasn't, the agreement didn't meet that, we obviously want to make sure we're doing what's necessary to at least deal with our past and hopefully come up with a better future. So, more than willing to try to structure whatever we can do on the property and which meets your requirements as well.
Let me just tell you that in the short run, we'd like you to commit to some direct communications with us, so we can get the arrearages straightened out. Can you do that for us?
Sure.
We'll start with Bill.
Yeah, I just really want to comment on the kind of the rate structure. I mean, we're well aware of this rate structure, and it's developed this way for a purpose. There are two different pieces of the water rate structure. There's a usage-based charge, and that's charged based on use, and that, you know, you use so many gallons and you get charged for that. There's also a fixed portion of that charge, the basic charge per meter, which helps us deal with some of our fixed costs. You know, those costs of running the well and of having an operator don't vary by the amount of water that gets used, and so you have kind of a fixed portion of our rate structure as well. Then the third piece of it is fire protection. And that is not based on usage, it's based on the availability of water to meet a need that may or may not happen. And I think this is fairly common. I'll ask Alan.
It is, it's kind of like the demand charge on an electric meter, that we have to supply that capacity, so there's an offset cost to maintain that, to buy and maintain that infrastructure. Same way with, you know, you pay more when an electric company uses a lot more, the rate goes up, because they have to supply, but they have to be able to supply you with that.
Right, so for example, the fire companies in town, they pay us a rate per hydrant. Regardless of whether they use those hydrants or not, we're providing a service, we're making that available to them. And to Alan's point, you know, in my earlier career, I used to do fire capacity analyses for towns and stuff, and so we have water tanks that we maintain that are there. Those tanks are not there to supply everyday needs. The wells supply those needs. Those tanks are there if we have a fire, if we have a major need. So we have costs that we incur.
900,000 gallons.
Right, to provide that.
You're using 105.
The service. Right. And so that's the nature of those charges. Sprinkler charges and hydrant charges are not usage-based charges. They're there to provide you with that service. Now, I imagine there are things you can do, arrangements you can make with your insurance company. I don't know what your requirements are, but you could lessen the number of sprinklers you have in your facility, and that would obviously save on those charges. You may not need the hydrants, I don't know, but that's a conversation.
So not to interrupt you.
Sure. Yeah.
But if we were going down that path, then there's a recount done of sprinkler heads?
Yeah, and I don't know if that's a service that, Alan, you would provide, or it's a...
Yeah, simple inspection, counting, you know, we can probably,
I mean, and I'm not saying that's
Yeah.
the solution, but I'm just asking if you
Yeah.
brought it up.
I mean, certainly taking out hydrants if it's not a fire issue, that's something I've seen done before. I can't say whether I'm not advising or, but,
Right.
Exactly.
you know.
Do you have a sprinkler company that
Well, I mean,
maintains it, or they could come and count?
Right, well, I mean, I didn't know what the official, you know, how you would, you know, if we sat there and said, hey, we've got half the number, somebody says, well, where's the official count? Or I didn't know what the procedure was.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly sure of the procedural issues. You know, you could provide us with the report, and we would verify that, certainly. But obviously, we're not in a position to tell you how many sprinklers or hydrants you'd have to have. That's a matter for you and for your insurance company. So-
And again, I'm not saying that's the solution, I'm just asking what the procedure would be if we went down that path.
I got a question, where are the hydrants?
Got me. Somewhere on the property, apparently.
Now, are we charging twice, one for,
I don't have the particulars. I know
One
that the
for-
private
one
fire
for him,
service
or-
is $150 per hydrant per quarter, and the sprinkler head service is 53 cents per sprinkler head per quarter. So somewhere we are generating those quarterly charges, and they're
well,
about a couple of grand a month.
my question
Every quarterly.
is if we're charging the fire company for hydrants, where are his hydrants? And are we charging the fire company for those hydrants, plus we're charging him for those hydrants?
I can't speak to this.
So I'm
with
asking where the
certainty,
hydrants are. If
but I-
they're inside, that's a different story. If they're
It's-
out in front
I
of the
believe that
building.
they're separate hydrants, but
Yeah.
that's.
Inside isn't off of the street.
Okay.
I don't know the answer, I'd have to check.
Based on my conversations with Ray Adamitis previously with Connecticut Water, they're separate hydrants, they're private hydrants, but I can't say that from firsthand experience.
So, let me ask one other question. If, for a time, I think that, or at one point in time, I think that the water for those sprinklers, way back in the day when where it was operating, may have come off of a private well. I know there were private wells that were on the property, probably prior to water being put in. If there was.
No.
No?
No.
Well, there are
Waring-
private wells,
Waring-
but I don't know what they're.
Maybe there, you have private wells, but when Waring was built,
Yeah,
the sewer plant was built. And the
okay,
only reason Waring came in is because we had sewer and water.
okay. So those, whatever was there was some sort of auxiliary they put in at some
Yeah.
point. Okay.
They might have put in an auxiliary well for fire protection.
Right.
But
Well, that
I
was
couldn't-
my
I couldn't
curiosity.
tell you
is what it
that,
was.
you'd have to go back to Waring.
It's really neither here nor there, it's more.
Which I never wanna hear, because then if there's a private well, how are we sure it's not connected to the public system without going in there and really
Right.
digging through stuff, but it probably not. There's been water a long time here because they had Hartford's reservoirs up the hill,
Yeah.
you know, but they had to drill wells and stuff because it was either filter or drill wells. So it's been there, the infrastructure's been around for a while. It was free pretty much, you just run it down the hill, no gravity, and hit it with some chlorine, and no longer.
Good water too.
Oh, yeah?
Well, we know, we don't know right now as we sit here, but we know that Computil, which is handling the billing for the authority and works directly with United Water, we know that they are billing you for X amount of fire hydrants and X amount of sprinkler heads. I just can't tell you what that number is. So it seems to me that both of us would want to know, we'll verify that, so we're going to have to come onto the property.
Yeah.
So that's step number one. We're going to have to arrange a time where representative of Blackhammer LLC and Mr.
Probably
Gettleman.
what will happen is I'll take care of that water report. I don't wanna, in the past, I know the Water Pollution Control Authority has had questions and so on, and there wasn't a contact person for that. You try to get a hold of Tom, that's like an impossibility. But, Rista knows where I am more than I know where I am, so.
Rista
I need one of those.
Malonka?
You're Rista, yeah.
Okay. So I'm assuming that that will happen in short order and that Mr. Nielsen will be the contact to let us into the property and go add it all up.
Yeah.
And also that we will be able to contact you, Mr. Briggs, to further discuss the payment that's been worked
But
out.
I'm sorry, I'm really not done yet.
Okay, I'm sure you're
Because,
not.
because
We're
quite
not done.
frankly, not only do I wanna see the sprinkler head number and understand that, but I think that it's not economical. And I think you have to examine that. There's nothing about what the WPCA does here in this town which is economical. It doesn't compare to other towns in terms of cost and where we incur elsewhere. And I think that's something that needs to be looked at, but in specific, we need to get it. I mean, 53 cents, I'd like to see a discount on that. We need to have something that's gonna make it more economical. You know, it's hard to bring in businesses when that's an operating cost, and we have to say to somebody, look, you know, you're gonna bear that one way or another, whether that's in the gross rent or that's in a triple net rent, they're gonna be bearing it one way or another. I think the town of New Hartford, and you are part of the town of New Hartford, has to be cognizant of the fact that this does not make you economically viable. You know, I mean, I've been running that building for 6 years, and I'll be honest, it is the hardest thing in the world. I do 15 towns in the state. You rank dead last in terms of economic development. any sort of economic activity. I can't buy a tenant in this town. And I mean buy, because you wanna know what it costs me to get them into that building? It's a fortune. And I don't see anybody else doing anything. So you guys gotta get a little bit of religion here. You have to catch on to the fact that you can't just be a sleepy old town forever. And that's how everything acts here. If you do not actually reach out there and grasp and do something to make yourself more economically viable, nobody's ever gonna build anything. And your commercial space is gonna sit vacant because your costs are too high. And I'm sorry, but nobody else seems to, make anybody aware of that. As I said earlier on, your economic development, and you're not economic development, but boy, you're tied in with it. And there's never been anything that existed in economic development. I apologize, but it's toothless here. And having it where we have, high expenses for your WPCA doesn't make it any better. And I think that you should take a hard look at what your costs are to make it more viable for your existing users. It's great that you want to add on more users down the road, and it's great you want to drag me through the coals and have a personal contact to reach me about back bills. But you know what? Those back bills are because of what was implemented and what was charged on this property before. And it wasn't economically viable before. It still isn't economically viable to charge those rates going forward. So you may want to get your pound out of flesh out of me, Mr. Chairman, and I'll deal with you directly. But I think that you need to take a close look and do something for us, who are the users who have actually done something in this town. I went in and I renovated that building. Did I get a thank you out of anybody in the town? No, but I got your $10,000, $14,000 in charges every year. How about somebody at some point in time say, hey, we're going to try to help by giving you a cut in your costs, as opposed to, hey, I want to get in touch with you directly. I'm sorry, I run a company, I'm a managing partner of it. If I say that my accountant's going to talk to you, my accountant's going to talk to you. You can't just sit there and say, you're going to get your pound of flesh out of me, and you can censor me or do whatever you want, sir, but the reality of the situation is you can deal with my accountant, you will not deal with me directly. I do not like to be treated the way you tried to treat me, and I want to get a rate reduction, and I will be here at the next meeting if necessary to get that. I will hammer out a deal with you, but I will not be dragged through the coals, because your WPCA needs to get a cheaper structure for those users in the system right now. And that's my piece on it.
I'm not interested in getting a pound of flesh out of anybody.
It did sound that way.
I apologize if it sounded that way.
I'm sorry, I am one of the bigger taxpayers in town.
I understand.
And I would appreciate some form of respect. I do have a parcel and land in town that the town would like to see developed. You're never gonna see it developed if the town does not try to make itself more viable for business. It's not viable for business.
As you rightly pointed out, we don't do economic development. We have to deal with our own set of realities, and we're trying to deal with them as best we can. The only reason I asked for you is that I was told we had some issues with Lori. We will recontact Lori. If Lori gets back to us and we have a working communication pipeline, we'd be happy to deal with Lori. Happy to deal with
And if you don't, and if there's an issue, I will be here at the next WPCA meeting in order to answer for any questions. There's a regular direct line of dealing with it, but if you're not getting a response, then we will make sure you do. You have my word on that. And I'm gonna be here next time if you need me.
The other thing that is gonna happen is we will be going before the Economic Development Commission, before the Business Council, before whatever. Mr. Bridges is gonna make sure that all of the various entities know that there's this problem, so that they just can't sit back there, that dumb and happy and say, we don't know what's going on. So.
Say something?
Sure.
Mr. Briggs, our system as it is a small system. We have fixed costs. So how much we'd like to cut and make everybody's bill lower. My own bill, I'm on the system. I have we have one of the higher water rates and one of the highest sewer rates in the state. We have those fixed costs of taking the treatment plant and running it, or maintaining the wells and everything like that. Until we make our base bigger, the only thing our bills are going to do is get larger, whether we want them to or not. I don't want my bill to get larger, even. But there's not much we can do about what our structures go do until the user base gets bigger.
You do have a catch-22 there. Oh, yeah. Because, you know, the base may not get larger if you're not creating an economically viable structure for do so. If your cost, and it depends on where you think I'm not an economist, I'm not gonna sit here but the fact is that if it's too expensive, people aren't gonna wanna hook up. I know you went to considerable expense, obviously, in expanding the plant, so, you know, understood, but, you know, it's one of those chicken and egg things.
Right, we were under consent order to
I know.
expand the plant whether we wanted to or not.
We understand, so.
And so now we're stuck with paying for that plant.
Right.
And part of our discussion later on tonight is how to pay for the plant in either a benefit or a rate structure. And that's part of it.
Something that was evident in the past had been, naturally, the rest of the citizens in town that are not on it don't want to pay for it. Everybody in the world realizes that, okay? But yet, if you're looking at it from a standpoint of the developer, all the rest of the citizens in town are certainly happy to take advantage of the new town taxes that are being derived from that individual that's bringing it in. And I don't know if I'm sure Bill had a handle on this 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 10 years ago, and so, you know, it's just something, can you take a look at? And, you know, no one has a problem in taking the taxes from the individuals and from the businesses, but yet the rest of the taxpayers seem to have a major problem of helping along with any of that.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, Carl, in that if we, the WPCA, I mean, we have a limited, narrow scope in what we can do. If we give you a break on your rates, that means that we charge, you know, these other people in the room, other business owners in the room, more money. Because we have fixed costs, we have a fixed base of users, and so if we provide a break over here, we have to raise our rates over there. And that's the way it works. On the other hand, if the town wants to promote economic development, the town can certainly provide you with other breaks and other incentives to make it more viable for you to be here. I mean, they could pay your bills for you. You know, and the difference is that the town, if everybody in the town benefits from economic development, then everybody in the town should shoulder that burden of that incentive structure, rather than asking the 400 users
Insane.
on the water and sewer system to shoulder the burden of economic development that everybody benefits from. And that's the situation we're stuck in. We're on your side. We want the town to come in and help us build the user base, and there's very little we can do to make that happen.
We would only, in both locations that I have, we would only expand the base. But we've already been through this, you know, we represent what would expand your base and give you more usage. You know, I have a big parcel of land up there that, you know, is just waiting for usage. You know, that's a discussion for another day, but that can be, you know, that can be a tremendous amount of usage with the right use. But, you know, it's a chicken and egg thing. You got a great town, you got great plus, but somebody's got to step it up. Appreciate the discussion.
Well, we are
We understand your
attempting as a
position.
commission to have a larger community conversation about the issues that have just been highlighted here. And I would encourage you or anybody else that's affected by our rates from a commercial or industrial point of view to reach out to the EDC and to the BOS and to the BOF and point out this tension that is developed in this town to see if we can resolve it in a way that doesn't keep moving towards higher charges, because eventually higher charges, people don't pay them because they can't afford them. It's not just the businesses, it's the residents. It hurts, it puts a squeeze on everybody, and we're about to see it. So we are trying to have that larger conversation. So I would encourage you to reach out to those boards as well as we are trying to reach out and move things along.
Great, we certainly will.
Thank you. So we will be in touch with Carl and proceed with the various issues that are here in front of us. And hopefully we can talk about the issues that are down the road as well.
Thank you for seeing us.
Thank you
Any
very
other
much.
questions, these gentlemen, before they leave? All right, thank you for coming up.
Thank you very much.
So while we're in customer requests, we had a visit from Daria Hart at Main Street, and she gave us some materials about her consumption during periods, and I don't know if you had a chance to look at those materials. I believe they're also in the minutes of May 3rd, 2012. And essentially what it comes down to is there was a quarter where she went to a consumption of about, I believe it was 14, and she generally claims that she was at 8. So has anybody had taken a look at that? Got any opinions on?
When was the 14?
The 14 was the quarter, I think, of it was last fall. I think. That isn't reflected in the minutes.
Can I ask
And
Alan a question?
Rosengren has those sheets.
Can I ask Alan a question? Did you investigate this?
No, I just saw it recently.
Okay. I was
We had to
curious.
deal with a neighbor though. I believe it's a neighbor, and we changed out the meter. The meter tested out okay. Put a new meter in at the commission's expense, and the numbers went down. Meter tested out okay.
So this property's meter was checked, and there was never a request to enter. And the meter outside was checked, and this property owner was told that the meter was correct. So I don't know.
The original one, this one hasn't, it's told the numbers are correct, the numbers that are plugged in are correct. We can pull out a meter and test it. Chances are we'll pay for a meter and find out it's correct. I mean, something happened, we can't interface, we don't know for sure. The numbers are billed right. I've seen a lot of meters tested, and I've seen one read high and probably 15 read low. But, I mean, it's a possibility it's a meter. I think it's more likely it was something else, but we'll probably never know. I mean, we're just billing what the meter says. If we want to pull it out, test it, put in a new one, I mean, that's within their rights to, the rights to do that, we'll do that. And then they'll have to come, But if it comes out straight, the other one, the meter came out okay. That they were still blaming the meter. So I don't know. If
Well,
you
the
think,
only other thing you can do is you give her a break on that 14, and then, just like we gave a break to Tony was down there. Once you get one break, that's it.
you use your lifetime break meter.
You got one
Right,
break
lifetime
for
break,
a
yeah.
lifetime.
We could change her meter at our expense, correct?
Yeah,
and then-
Go.
Why don't we change the meter and then, I don't care if we give her a break on it, but that'll be her one break for. But I definitely think it would make her happier if we change the meter, even if it doesn't change the numbers.
Yeah, well, if I'm gonna change it, let's set it out and have it tested.
Yeah.
See what it tells us. And it's not a perfect test, but it basically says it tests at a high flow, a medium flow, and a low flow. And I think on one of them, the medium and the low were under reading and the high was over reading. So the meter test in itself is not a perfect thing, but their flows, they're not going to be in the high flows. They're not going to be running 20, 40 gallons a minute. So the low and the medium were undercharged, and that's what the meter test said.
So, are they requesting a break, or what are they?
They're requesting consumption for the bill to go to 8, which they say is the average, and it appears to be close to the average, to reflect that average consumption. They're requesting a meter with a new certified unit, not a rebuilt unit.
We don't install rebuilt units. If we're going to the problem of putting in a meter, we're not going to save $30 on buying a meter. We don't want to do it over again.
Right, so you are net installed.
Only new certified, comes with the factory certified card. We'll leave it, we'll give it to it.
So they are asking for both, then you.
Well, if they ask them for both, then they got a one-time,
Yeah.
they got a new meter, and then they have a one-time, reduction charge, or lifetime reduction charge, and that's it. And if the meter goes, up again, they don't, they gotta pay.
And we'll talk to them, we go out there, we'll tell them, they can look at their own meter, they can go in their basement and read it. If you think something's wrong, just read it every month, watch your usage. We'll do that education thing too, to let them know that they don't, they can follow their usage.
All right.
You want a motion?
Is there, is there a motion on those two items?
Yeah,
Mike?
I think I'll present the motion that we credit their bill to the average of the last, whatever it was, 12 months or whatever they showed us for data. And we replace their meter at our cost, and that'll be their one-time, lifetime for that property.
I'll second
A motion is made as to the property at 598 Main Street for the one-time credit on a future bill. And it'll be approximately $200 just for people's notification, and also that the meter be replaced with a new certified unit. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Alan will follow up and deal with that issue. Okay. Let's bounce back to the agenda, and essentially we are at a point where we are at the budget report. There should.
I got a question, again, going back to Waring.
Mhm.
They made a, how should I say, a stink back when Daria was,
The Waring,
Sure.
the Waring people or the
The Waring.
subsequent owners?
the
Waring?
owners.
The
They did-
subsequent owners or the
No,
Waring
this
Corporation?
has to be this one.
Mhm.
And they complained about the sprinklers. And to me, the only way they can reduce the sprinklers is take the sprinklers out completely. Take some of them out anyway. And Daria said, well, if you do that, or you don't wanna pay for the sprinkler heads, your insurance is gonna go sky high. Or the insurance companies require sprinklers. Also, we asked them to separate the water for each of their tenants, and I don't think that has ever been done. And this was back when Ray had. Now, if you give Waring a break on their sprinklers, what about the other companies? Not that I wanna knock it, if they eliminate the sprinkler heads, in other words, take them out, actually take them out. That's one thing.
Same with the hydrants, take them out. You don't
Take them out.
Take them out.
Then they won't have to pay for them. But if you give them a break on their sprinkler heads at 53 cents, what about Hurley's? What about Perry's? You gonna give them that? If you give them a break, just like Bill said, we're gonna have to charge someone else a higher rate to make up the difference. Now, if they actually take them out, then they don't get charged. And then if they have a problem with the insurance, their insurance carrier, well, that's their problem.
Well, then don't they, the first thing before they do that, talk to their insurance company?
I have no, I don't know.
Sometimes they do, but not necessarily.
No.
Sometimes
In
they
other
find
words-
out the hard
in other words,
way.
If they don't wanna pay for all the sprinkler
Yeah.
heads, eliminate them. Take them out and physically take them out. So when you go in, when we go in and count them, they're not there. That's one way to do it. What happens with the, on the other side of the coin, with their insurance carrier, that's their problem. I mean, that's my opinion. Because if you give them a break, Hurley is gonna want a break, because I know he has sprinklers over there. Perry has sprinklers, and a few of the other industrial plants up there has sprinklers.
The payment arrangement, I had the numbers there, it was $225 a month on 14,000, so it really was missed the mark. His accountants didn't tell him straight if he didn't know, but that's what it was. It was $225 a month is what they told us they could afford to pay on the whole balance, which was like 14,000. So it wasn't even close. It wasn't even a reasonable offer. I mean, he didn't know the details, maybe not. I don't try to make anybody look bad or anything, but that's what really went down.
Well, those are a couple of very disparate thoughts. We know that we're going to go in, you're gonna ask Computel how many sprinkler heads we're charging them for. You're gonna ask Computel how many hydrants we're charging them for, so we will actually know, and then we will communicate to them.
Certainly
And
we'll
where
count, certainly we'll count the hydrants. We'll make sure that there's nothing.
Okay. We should
Now,
also-
those have to be inside hydrants, am I correct?
No, I think they just have to be on the property, so that
Well, then, why
Not public
are,
hydrants.
okay, then, are
Private
we
property.
charging the fire department for the same thing? Because that's a fire district. That's a
Probably,
new
probably
fire-
not,
I don't
but
think
that's
so.
another,
Well, I'm just asking a question.
probably not, but it's a good question.
Yeah.
Any question
You know,
at this point.
I mean, if you're charging him and you're charging the fire company, there's something wrong. Something's wrong.
I don't think so. I mean, the
Well-
hydrants and stuff, they're big money. They were picked up straight from Connecticut water. It doesn't mean it's right. We'll look at it.
Yeah, I mean, we have the same rate for private fire hydrants and public fire hydrants. It's exactly the same rate. Well, it's just a matter of arithmetic.
And I
Counting them.
think we've raised that rate since I've been on the board.
Never.
So it's not like it's going up like our other rates.
No, it doesn't, yeah.
So we know we're gonna approach it, we know we're gonna count them, and then whatever action that any commercial or industrial entity wants to take to reduce the number of sprinklers and reduce the number of hydrants, they just have to go to the proper authorities and do whatever they're gonna do, or not. But we're only gonna charge them for the ones that are hooked up.
You know, maybe the fire marshal has something.
I was gonna say, there's gotta be a fire code.
Fire, maybe
There's
the
gotta be a fire code
where-
somewhere on this
course there
website
is.
that
Yeah.
determines how these sprinklers were set originally.
Of course there is.
So,
It's not,
I don't think you're gonna be able to remove sprinkler heads.
but that's not really our business. Our business, we'll charge him for what they have, and if he wants to make a decision that may or
Well,
may not be legal, then.
he does have a point saying that when Waring was there, they were a manufacturing entity. Right now, he has, what does he have in there? He has a landscape place.
Said he has 3 things in there. He has Collinsville Antiques, a nail salon or
Yeah.
salon of some kind,
Yeah.
And
and
a
a
storage.
self-storage business.
Self-storage.
Wait a minute now, he's got another one in there. He's got a, huh?
The little restaurant. with
Well,
the
that
antiques.
could,
That's the
could,
antiques.
that
That's
could go
part
with
of
the
it.
Collinsville Antiques.
Okay.
But he's got a landscape business on the right-hand side
Yeah.
in the back. Don't tell me he's only got 3.
I'm not telling you anything, Kenny. I'm telling you.
I've seen it, I go by it
Yeah,
every damn
well,
day.
yeah, he's got
But what I'm
Gary-
saying is,
Gary Patnos
It's-
there.
those 3 or 4 businesses are not the same as Waring's manufacturing business. So his sprinkler heads, he could eliminate because they're not manufacturing.
Maybe he can.
That's
But I'm not a.
Maybe he can, yeah.
Maybe.
That's a-
And then we
that's
leave,
his-
then we walk away.
That's has nothing to do with us. I mean, that's his business decision. He needs to needs to run his business according to code, and he needs to talk to his insurance company, and
That's
he needs
true.
to do all those things, all we're in the business of, is charging him for what he has.
And if he
so.
wants to eliminate the sprinkler heads, well, so be it.
Well, we'll see, it moves back to him, we'll just make sure that what he's getting billed is what he has.
Yeah, we're gonna go in there, we're gonna count them.
I don't know,
He's
how
gonna
would
be able
count
to take it
sprinkler
from
heads,
there.
I don't know about the layout of the building. Well, you know, if we need to bring somebody in, cause I don't know if you can follow it, you know, if you go in there, they go in and say, here, these are all the ones we count, and they just don't show you part of the building, I'm not,
Wasn't
You know,
there
when
some
it comes
kind of
to
a
that-
test that can be run? I mean, like a
it should be
smoke
run all
test
the
or
time.
something?
Not
They
for
should
sprinklers.
Not for sprinklers.
Not for sprinklers.
that's for
You do a
sure.
pressure test on
Yeah.
the system, but that's all you really do for a sprinkler system, is pressure test it.
I'm sure people do these investigations and inspections
Oh,
all
I'm sure
the
they
time.
do,
So
I'm sure they do, they
if
have,
we need to expend a few bucks without
yeah.
breaking the bank here, then we wanna know, because, you know, just for our own audit purposes, if we are billing for 32 sprinkler heads and 32 fire hydrants, it might be a good idea to go out there and count them,
Oh, yeah.
one by one. It might be a good idea to count the fire hydrants. I think we billed the private, public for 54 fire hydrants. Kenny painted most of them. 54 that work.
Well, we got,
I think we bill for 54, but we'll do that in
a lot of fire hydrants that got to be found. We shoveled the snow last year, a year ago, 2 years ago.
I found a couple you didn't paint. You missed it.
Yeah, well, they're not mapped out very
I
well.
understand that, but
That's
we're gonna
for sure. That's for sure.
All right, so that's where we know where we're going, but at the same time, there is a ordinance and a regulation here about EDUs and separate units and separate meters. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I know that we only bill 2 locations. We bill 282, whatever the number is, A, and 283A and 283B. And then we send a separate bill for the hydrants and the sprinklers. So we send 3 bills. So if there's
We-
4 units,
we-
that's not happening.
We are getting paid for what he uses for water.
Not the separate
But-
unit thing that you
But
raised. That is not
correct,
happening.
and that was agreed by him or his company when Connecticut Water had it. That I know. So I don't,
So let's hear about it at our July meeting, if we can.
Yeah,
Whether
but
it's
we
you
we
or
also
Mark's
need
meeting.
to say, if somebody's gotta lean on them and say, you came here and blustered, but, you know, you're still lacking, we need some help with the balance, I mean, we'll.
No, we're proceeding, that's our next discussion.
Okay.
We're proceeding with whatever actions we're gonna take in terms of liens and in terms of shut-off notices, but, you know, we're gonna go where we gotta go.
Good.
And it's gonna, you know, it's gonna be a major issue. It's gonna raise other issues, but it's time they got raised, quite
Yeah,
frankly.
gotta get it on the table and get through it.